Hello everyone, I'm Matt Mitrovic, the Alternate Historian. It's been a while, but today is the day where I bring back Trope Talk, the segment where I dissect famous alternate history tropes. Today's topic, Pin to Zion on the Map.
Pin to Zion on the map describes the tendency of alternate historians to create a Jewish homeland somewhere besides Palestine. In alternatehistory.com, the trope is known as Pin to Zion on the Eurasia, which is a term coined by a user named 9bucks. I, however, modified the name because in my experience, I have found examples of alternate Israels on every continent.
Perhaps the most famous example of the trope is Michael Chabon's The Yiddish Policeman's Union, which is set in a timeline where a Jewish refuge is created in Sitka, Alaska in 1941.
Surprisingly, the novel's divergence is actually based on a real-life proposal, called the Slattery Report, which, if adopted, would have settled Jewish refugees fleeing Nazi Europe in Alaska to not only provide them with a safe haven, but to also develop Alaska's economy. Now, in our timeline, the proposal was rejected, thanks in part to the efforts of Alaskan Territory delegate Anthony Dimon, but in the timeline of the Yiddish Policeman's Union, Dimon is killed in a car accident, and thus is never there to oppose the proposal. It's interesting to note that despite being one of the more famous examples of Pin to Zion on the map, the story actually subverts the trope because the Jewish settlement at Sitka is only meant to be temporary and is technically not an alternate Israel. Perhaps a more popular location for alternate Israel comes from our timeline's Uganda scheme. This was a 1903 proposal by British Colonial Secretary Joseph Chamberlain to Theodore Herzl for a Jewish refuge at Uasin Gishu, an isolated area atop the Mau Escarpment in modern Kenya. The land in question had a temperate climate and thus was thought to be suitable for Jewish European settlers. The proposal was actually taken seriously by the World Zionist Organization, the group dedicated to establishing a Jewish homeland, and they even voted to send a team to investigate the land. The team, however, decided the large population of natives and the exotic wildlife did not make it a good spot for a Jewish colony. That didn't stop science fiction writers, however, from writing about an alternate Israel in Africa. For example, Ward Moore's Bring the Jubilee mentions a Jewish homeland in Uganda created by a British Labour government in the 1930s. Lavi Tidhar also wrote a short story called Uganda, which can be found in his collection Hebrew Punk, set in a world where the Uganda scheme succeeded.
Meanwhile, the recent counterfactual history anthology, What Ifs of Jewish History, featured a fictional travel guide written by Adam Rovner for a new Judea located in East Africa.
There are even more places outside of Africa where a Jewish state has turned up. For example, in the mockumentary CSA Confederate States of America, the Confederacy turns Long Island into a Jewish reservation.
Then there is Emily Barton's The Book of Esther, which is set in the Khanate of Khazaria, an actual medieval Jewish empire that existed on the Russian steppe, that in the book survived into the 20th century.
Even Europe has hosted some alternate Israels in fiction. The Mirage by Matt Ruff featured a Jewish state in Germany, as did Simone Zelich's Juden state.
Of course, there are a lot more examples I could list, but now we should take the time to ask the very important question. Is it possible for Israel to exist anywhere else besides Palestine?
Well, in case you couldn't tell from the previous examples, Pin to Zion on the map is very plausible. Until the founding of Israel in 1948, Jews were long known as a people without a nation, who often suffered intense persecution from the places they called home. Although Palestine was long considered the historic homeland of the Jews, there were many, both Jews and Gentiles, who thought a state anywhere, even outside of Palestine, would be good for the Jews. Some of the proposals could be dismissed as utopianism, but others were plausible and in some cases were actually carried out. One prominent example is a Jewish autonomous oblast located in Siberia, which was established as a Jewish homeland in the Soviet Union in 1934. It still exists today in modern Russia, but only 1% of its population identifies as Jewish.
Weird how Stalin couldn't find anyone who wanted to live in Siberia.
Even the Axis powers of World War II experimented with the idea of a Jewish homeland. The alleged Fugu plan suggested Japan wanted to encourage Jewish settlement in Manchuria, but there is some debate among historians about how serious this plan really was, or whether the Japanese government even considered it. Then there is the infamous Madagascar plan to forcibly settle Europe's Jews to the island of Madagascar, in what was to be one giant concentration camp. Although today this plan is most associated with Nazi Germany, the British, French, and Polish governments all considered settling their Jewish populations there at some point. German failure to knock Britain out of World War II, however, put an end to that plan. In fact, there were dozens of proposals to create a Jewish homeland, and we're not even considering the actual pre-Israel Jewish states from our timeline. I already mentioned the Khanate of Khazar, but we shouldn't forget the biblical Israel and Judea in Palestine, the Himyarite kingdom in Yemen, and the kingdom of Assyrian in Ethiopia, just to name a few. And hopefully I pronounced all those correctly. If any of these states existed to the present, they could be a shoo-in for alternate Israel.
Now we come to the point where I decide if Pin to Zion on the map is a tired cliche or a trope that still has some life in it. My opinion, it's a trope.
Even considering all the examples of pin design on the map, our timeline's sheer number of attempts to create a Jewish state is stunning to say the least. I personally feel there's a wealth of story fodder there that is largely untapped, and if an alternate historian were to build upon it, they might create an alternate reality vastly different from our own.
Well, that is what to say in the subject. If you like what I do, please comment, subscribe, share this video, or support me on Patreon. I'm Matt Mitrovich, the Alternate Historian. Bye!